0600 hours, South China Sea, 20 miles east of the contested shoal. The sun breaches the horizon, painting the flat water in shades of bruised purple and orange. Heavy humidity hangs over the deck of the civilian resupply vessel Sierra. Sailors sip thick coffee and lean against the railing, watching flying fish skip across the bow. The engines hum with a steady, monotonous vibration that rattles the steel floor plates. It feels like a routine run, just another Tuesday carrying food and fuel to the remote outpost. The sea is glass, undisturbed by wind. The radar operator on the bridge freezes. A single blip multiplies into 10, then 20. He taps the glass screen, but the ghosts remain. On the bridge, the captain raises his binoculars. The horizon is no longer empty. A wall of gray steel approaches from the north, moving fast and pushing massive bow waves. It is a swarm of maritime militia hulls, spearheaded by a massive Coast Guard cutter. The radio screams with static and harsh warnings in a foreign tongue. The captain grabs the intercom and yells for the crew to brace. The lead cutter accelerates, it does not turn. It aims directly for the Sierra's midships. The captain yells for hard starboard. Too late. The collision sounds like the earth cracking open. Metal shrieks as the larger gray hull plows into the transport ship. The impact throws the crew across the bridge like rag dolls. Coffee mugs shatter against the bulkhead. Sailors on the deck scramble for handholds as the ship lists violently to port. The enemy ship reverses, engines churning white water, then rams again. Crunch. The hull plates buckle inward, snapping rivets that ping off the steel like bullets. Turrets on the militia boats swivel. High-pressure water cannons erupt. The jets of water hit the Sierra like solid concrete. The bridge windows explode inward in a shower of jagged glass. The helmsman is hurled backward, blood streaming from deep cuts on his face. The water floods the control console, sparking and hissing as electronics short out. The smell of ozone mixes with the salt spray. On the lower deck, a crewman tries to secure a loose cargo crate. A blast of water catches him in the chest, lifting him off his feet and smashing him into a winch. He collapses, gasping for air, clutching his ribs. The executive officer wipes blood from his eyes and grabs the radio handset. He screams a mayday call on the international frequency, voice cracking with strain. He orders damage control teams to the port side to shore up the breach. The engines whine as the Sierra tries to pull away, but the swarm is too thick. Smaller blue-hulled militia boats circle the transport like sharks, cutting off every escape route. They throw thick polypropylene lines into the water to foul the Sierra's propellers. The ship shudders and dies. The propeller shaft locks up, tangled in the floating cables. The Sierra drifts helplessly, dead in the water. The massive Coast Guard cutter looms over them, blocking out the sun. It sounds its horn, a deafening, bone-rattling blast that vibrates in the sailors' chests. Another collision. This time, the bow of the cutter rides up onto the Sierra's deck, crushing the forward cargo containers. Steel grinds on steel. Sparks shower down on the crew below. A fuel drum ruptures. Diesel sprays across the deck, slick and pungent, mixing with the seawater. The assault stops as quickly as it began. The enemy fleet forms a tight, impenetrable ring around the crippled transport. The militia boats idle their engines, weapons trained on the exposed crew. Black smoke rises from the Sierra's crushed flank, staining the pristine morning sky. Wounded sailors groan on the wet deck, holding improvised bandages to their cuts. The captain looks out at the encircling armada. The blockade is absolute. 8:30 hours, 40 miles west of the blockade line. The sun climbs higher, baking the gray steel deck of the Allied patrol boat. The vessel cuts through the heavy swell, throwing white spray over the bow. On the bridge, the crew stands tense, eyes scanning the horizon. The distress signal from the Sierra plays on a loop in the background, a constant reminder of the danger ahead. The captain grips the railing, his knuckles white. The ocean is deceptively calm, the waves rolling in a gentle rhythm. A shadow breaks the mist on the starboard bow. A heavy militia corvette emerges, its silhouette sharp and aggressive. It moves with purpose, cutting across the patrol boat's path. There is no radio warning, no request to turn back. The corvette's turret swivels. The black barrels of a heavy machine gun level out. The distance closes to less than 500 yards. The air feels heavy, charged with static. The silence shatters. The corvette's guns flash. Tracers zip across the water like angry hornets. The ocean surface erupts in a line of white geysers that race toward the patrol boat. Rounds slam into the hull. Clang, thud, screech. The sound is deafening, like a jackhammer on a tin roof. Sparks fly as bullets shred the aluminum plating. A gunner on the patrol boat's aft deck spins his weapon to return fire. A round punches through the shield. He is thrown backward, his helmet hitting the deck with a hollow crack. Blood sprays across the non-slip paint. Another sailor rushes forward, grabs the gunner by his vest, and drags him behind cover. The captain screams for evasive maneuvers. The helmsman yanks the wheel hard left. The boat heels over, engines screaming as the propellers bite into the water. The radar warning receiver shrieks, a high-pitched warbling tone that pierces the chaos. "Vampire! Vampire!" the tactical officer yells. On the distant horizon, a white smoke trail marks the sky. An anti-ship missile arcs downward, terminal guidance locked. It ignores the small patrol boat. It dives toward a massive fuel tanker lingering in the safe zone. The missile slams into the tanker's midsection. The explosion is blinding. A sphere of orange fire expands instantly, consuming the tanker's bridge. The shockwave hits the water a second later, flattening the waves. The sound hits the patrol boat like a physical blow, rattling the teeth of every man on board. The tanker's hull groans and splits. Thousands of tons of burning fuel spill into the sea. The water catches fire. A wall of black smoke roils upward, blocking out the sun. The patrol boat captain slams his hand on the console. He orders full retreat. The small vessel reverses hard, engines whining in protest, backing away from the inferno. Flaming debris rains down from the sky. Chunks of burning steel hiss as they hit the water. The tanker lists, the bow rising vertically as the stern drags it down. The ocean swallows the burning wreck. 1,400 hours, U.S. Indo-Pacific Command Headquarters, Hawaii. Air conditioners hum in the windowless operations center. Rows of officers sit hunched over glowing blue monitors. The room is dim, lit only by the wall of digital maps tracking every vessel in the Pacific. The silence is heavy, broken only by the click of keyboards and the low murmur of voice comms. A red alert bar flashes across the main screen. The encrypted order arrives from Washington. The authorization codes match. The officer in charge nods to his comms team. He turns the key. The signal shoots through fiber optic cables and bounces off military satellites. It hits fleet receivers across 3 oceans instantly. In Yokosuka, Japan, the klaxons scream across the harbor. Sailors on the decks of gray destroyers drop their paint scrapers and sprint for their battle stations. Heavy steel chains rattle and spark as anchors haul up from the mud. Massive gas turbine engines whine to life, venting heat shimmers into the cool air. The ships cast off their mooring lines. The heavy ropes splash into the water. Tugboats push the bows away from the pier. The destroyers pivot, their sharp prows cutting the water as they surge toward the harbor mouth. 4,000 miles away in the Indian Ocean, an aircraft carrier heels over hard to starboard. The massive vessel carves a wide white wake in the deep blue water. On the flight deck, yellow-shirted handlers rush around fighter jets. Hydraulic lifts whine, raising fully armed aircraft from the hangar bay to the deck. Steam catapults hiss, testing pressure. The blast deflectors rise like steel walls. The ship's horn bellows, a deep, resonant note that scares seabirds from the rigging. Escort frigates flank the carrier, their radar spinning rapidly, searching the sky. At a naval base in northern Australia, support trucks tear away from the side of an amphibious assault ship. Fuel hoses detach with a snap and a spray of diesel. Loading ramps slam shut. The stern gate seals with a metallic thud. Marines inside check their assault rifles, racking charging handles and loading magazines. The ship's screws churn the water into a brown froth as it powers away from the dock. Back in the Pacific, a U.S. carrier strike group goes to Condition 1. The admiral stands on the bridge wing, watching the formation tighten. He speaks into the handset, ordering maximum speed. The entire fleet accelerates. Bows rise. White water sprays over the decks. The noise is immense, a symphony of roaring engines and crashing waves. The ocean seems to boil as hundreds of thousands of tons of steel force their way through the swell. The map in the operations center updates. The solitary blue dots turn into arrows. They all point toward the same coordinate in the South China Sea. The Quad Alliance is no longer a concept on paper. It is a moving wall of iron and fire. 1,900 hours, 20,000 feet above the South China Sea. The sun dips below the western horizon, bleeding crimson light across the anvil tops of cumulonimbus clouds. The sky is a bruising mix of purple and black. 2 Allied fighter jets patrol in a wide banking turn. Their wingtips cut through the thin, cold air. Condensation trails flow from their engines, catching the last of the pink light. Inside the cockpits, the pilots breathe rhythmically, the hiss of oxygen regulators the only sound. The radar screens glow soft green, sweeping the empty void ahead. The flight lead's warning system chirps, a hard digital tone. The green sweep freezes on a cluster of bright contacts. They are not commercial airliners. They are moving fast, supersonic, closing at Mach 1.5. The lead pilot flips a switch under a plastic guard. He arms the master weapons system. Contact, he says. The word is flat, mechanical. The clouds ahead tear apart. A squadron of enemy bombers bursts through the vapor, flanked by agile escort fighters. They fly in a tight diamond formation, dark jagged shapes against the twilight. The Allied jets drop their external fuel tanks. The metal canisters tumble away, falling into the clouds below. Afterburners ignite. Blue flames shoot from the exhaust nozzles. The jets surge forward, slamming the pilots back into their ejection seats. G-forces crush their chests. The enemy escorts break formation. They dive, rolling inverted. A flash lights up the dim sky. A smoke trail corkscrews toward the lead Allied jet. The pilot yanks the control stick hard right. He punches the flare release. Burning magnesium decoys pop from the fuselage, blooming like white-hot fireworks. The missile takes the bait. It detonates harmlessly in the wake, shaking the jet with the shockwave. The Allied wingman locks onto the lead bomber. A tone growls in his headset. He squeezes the trigger. An air-to-air missile drops from the rail, ignites, and streaks away. It accelerates instantly. The white smoke trail draws a straight line to the target. The bomber banks sluggishly, trying to evade. Too slow. The missile impacts the starboard engine. Flash. The explosion shears the massive wing off at the root. Fuel ignites in a fireball that illuminates the darkening ocean for miles. The bomber enters a flat spin, trailing thick black smoke and debris. It tumbles through the cloud layer, a dying meteor plummeting toward the water. The remaining enemy fighters scatter, diving for the deck to escape the radar lock. The Allied pilots level their wings, circling the burning pillar of smoke. 0200 hours, 400 feet below the surface. The ocean is pitch black. The pressure is immense, squeezing the steel hull of the Australian attack submarine. Inside, the air is cool and recycled. Red tactical lighting bathes the control room in a bloody glow. The crew moves in silence, wearing rubber-soled shoes to dampen any vibration. The only sound is the rhythmic thrum-thrum of the cooling pumps and the faint digital chirp of the sonar waterfall display. The sonar operator leans forward, pressing his headphones tight against his ears. He closes his eyes. He listens to the ocean's heartbeat. A scratch, a faint metallic scrape against the water. The operator's eyes snap open. He types furiously. Contact, he whispers. Bearing 090, multiple submerged contacts, fast screws. The captain steps behind him. He stares at the screen. 3 jagged green lines cut through the static. A hunter-killer wolf pack. They are sprinting to flank the Allied surface fleet above. The captain nods once. He does not shout. Flood tubes 1 and 2, he says. The order is repeated. The ship shudders slightly as seawater rushes into the torpedo tubes. The pressure equalizes with a hiss. Firing point procedures, bud, the weapons officer says. Solution locked. Shoot tube 1, shoot tube 2. Whoosh, whoosh. Compressed air slams the heavy torpedoes out of the hull. The submarine bucks gently against the recoil. The guidance wires spool out, tethering the weapons to the ship. On the display, 2 new bright lines appear, accelerating away from the sub at 50 knots. The enemy reacts. The green lines on the sonar screen jaggedly diverge. They hear the incoming death. Noisemakers, decoys, eject from the enemy subs, sizzling and popping to confuse the sensors. The Australian torpedoes ignore the decoys. They are wire-guided, relentless. The first torpedo closes the distance. Its sonar goes active. Ping, ping, ping. The sound penetrates the steel hull of the lead enemy boat. Impact. The warhead detonates amidships. The shockwave travels faster than sound in the water. It hits the Australian sub a moment later, a dull, heavy hammer blow that shakes dust from the overhead pipes. The crew grabs onto consoles to steady themselves. The enemy sub breaks. The pressure hull snaps like a dry twig. A massive bubble of air expands, then collapses. The water rushes in, crushing steel plates and bulkheads instantly. The implosion sound, a terrifying deep crunch, echoes through the ocean for miles. The green line on the sonar screen simply vanishes. The ocean swallows the wreckage. The remaining enemy subs scatter, diving deep into the abyss to escape the silent hunter. 0600 hours, Malacca Strait, western approach. Thick gray mist clings to the water, obscuring the coastline. The narrow shipping lane is choked with idle supertankers, anchored and waiting for safety. An Indian naval destroyer moves slowly through the channel, its radar sweeping the gloom. The damp air smells of diesel and rotting seaweed. On the bridge, the crew operates in hushed tones, eyes glued to thermal sensors. The water is dangerously shallow here, limiting maneuverability. Contact! The lookout shouts, pointing to the starboard bow. 1,000 yards. Mine layers. Through the lifting fog, the silhouette of an enemy corvette emerges. It sits low in the water. Crewmen on its stern roll black, spiked spheres off rails into the sea. Mines. They splash into the dark water, disappearing beneath the surface. The destroyer captain reacts instantly. Main battery, engage surface target, fire. The 127mm deck gun on the destroyer's bow swivels. It thunders. The muzzle flash lights up the fog like a lightning strike. The sound echoes off the nearby tankers. A split second later, the shell slams into the corvette's superstructure. Crack! The bridge of the enemy ship disintegrates. Glass and steel spray outward. The corvette lists heavily, its steering gear jammed. The enemy ship fights back. Its rear autocannon spins up. A stream of tracer rounds hammers the destroyer's hull. Ping, ping, ping. Bullets chew up the railing and shatter the searchlights. A fire breaks out on the destroyer's amidships deck. Damage control teams rush forward, unspooling hoses as rounds zip past their heads. Hard to port, the captain yells. Bring the close-in weapon systems to bear. The destroyer heels over, cutting the distance. The Gatling gun on the upper deck activates. It sounds like a chainsaw tearing through canvas. Burt! A wall of tungsten rounds shreds the corvette's hull. The thin steel plates rip open like wet paper. Fuel barrels on the corvette's deck rupture and ignite. A stray round hits a mine still on the corvette's rail. The explosion is catastrophic. The stern of the enemy ship vanishes in a blinding white flash. The shockwave lifts the corvette out of the water. It snaps in half. The bow shoots vertical, hanging in the air for a terrifying moment before plunging backward. Debris rains down, twisted metal, burning life vests, shattered radar dishes. The destroyer slows, its guns smoking. The water where the corvette stood is a churning mess of foam and oil. The threat is neutralized. The channel remains open.